Welcome to the Latin MedTech Leaders Podcast, a conversation with leaders who have succeeded or plan to succeed in Latin America. Please subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, etc. Today, our guest is Thomas Gibson. Tom is the co-founder and chief executive officer at MedGlobal Group, a marketplace for the medical device industry with special focus in Latin America. Thomas has 22 years of experience as an executive for healthcare and hospital organizations in the United States and now lives in Mexico. So, Tom, it's great to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. And Julio, it's a pleasure to be on your podcast and just to be involved in Latin America market. And I really appreciate what you're doing to let people know how amazing this market is.
Beautiful, beautiful. I like that. I love that introduction. Very enthusiastic. All right, Tom, let's get started talking about your journey. I mean, how is it that you got involved with what you're doing today in Mexico?
Well, I've always had this dream that I wanted to live abroad and learn new cultures and work abroad. And one day I met my wife, who happened to be Mexican, and we were diving in Cancun. And everything just kind of happened from there. And we decided that, since that was my dream, or one of my passions, to live abroad, I said, well, you know what, here's a good chance to do that. And we did it. We moved down here and started a medical equipment company. And next thing you know, things changed, the environment changed. We saw many opportunities here, and we have taken them. And that's how we became MedGlobal Group.
Very good, very good. So let's talk a little bit about your past. What is it that you did back in the US when you were actively working in healthcare and hospital organizations?
See, so my main role was working more on the operations side. So I worked on facilities, hospital constructions. I oversaw clinical engineering, staffing, and regulatory concerns with the hospital, joint commissions, and things like that. Um, and I always had a passion for the construction, installing medical equipment, de-installing it. And then part of what I really strived for was finding a home for the equipment that was de-installed from the hospitals that I worked at. Because we all know that equipment still has many active years of life left in it. It just doesn't meet the needs for that particular facility. And so that was always stayed in the back of my mind, like that someday I needed to find a way to help solve these problems and improve these issues.
Hmm. So that's the genesis of what you're doing today, actually.
That is, yes, and what we're doing today literally started at our kitchen tabletop. Between my wife and I. My wife was my partner, believe it or not. So we work together, and we're our business partners, and I love every moment of it.
Very good. All right. So let's talk about trends in Latin America. That's usually a question that I ask my guests because there are many things, there are many winds in Latin America today, and there's always an interesting conversation about what people see as trends. And lots of time, you tell me about trends that I've never seen. So it's great to interact about talking about trends. So, what trends, economic, political, social, do you see happening in Latin America that are relevant for the medical equipment and medical device business?
Sure. So I think what's really important, that we have to understand, like, where Latin America stands in the healthcare marketplace. And not many people understand um, exactly like what's going on in Latin America, and especially in details. One of the things we should understand, that globally there's 100,000 hospitals, and a quarter of them are in the US, a quarter of them are in China, a quarter are spread between Europe and Africa, but a quarter of them sit in Latin America. And that equate to about 20,000 hospitals. It's not quite a quarter, but 1.56 million beds. That's a lot of beds. We have 52,000 operating rooms. We have 20,000 delivery rooms. And when people think of Latin America, I don't think they actually think of those numbers. They really don't think. But what the difference is in Latin America is that even though we have this quantity of hospitals and clinics that support the healthcare system, there are one third fewer beds in the hospitals, and there's a fraction of specialty services that are available around the world. So that's one of the challenges that we work at. Like the average hospital bedside in Latin America is 56 beds, when the average hospital size in the United States is 162. So there's quite a difference here. Chile is an exception to the rule. Chile has advanced a much farther on healthcare, um, but we are seeing that the size of hospitals directly affect their ability to acquire proper capital resources, and those capital resources include equipment and human capital here. Um, Latin America, even though these statistics don't sound so great, but Latin America is actually above the average for the OECD on medical equipment. But they're still way behind the rest of the world. And there's many reasons that happens. Now, when we talk about trends, I think I'm going to talk in a different way, if it's okay with you, from more of like the challenges that are happening in
Okay.
Latin America, and
All right.
then that
Yeah.
creates the opportunities for the other parts of the world
Okay. All right.
to actually support Latin America. I think it's very important for us to understand this. So, even though Latin America is an emerging market, and out of the 10 emerging markets in the world, Latin America holds 4 positions. Okay, so Mexico is Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, your home country, and Argentina. So those are one of the within the top 10 of the emerging markets in Latin America. But the problems are is despite these positive statistics that we see, hospitals do not have the capability to develop centers that have expertise treatment. And there's many reasons that that happens. So most of your hospitals in Latin America focus only on primary treatment, which means that many patients are unable to get specialty treatments here. And that happens, number one, is because hospitals in Latin America don't have leverage capabilities. The average, we'll just speak for Mexico itself. In Mexico, the average public hospital is 100 beds, but the average private hospital is 15 to 20 beds. So, with that kind of patient output, they don't have leverage in the industry to buy proper equipment. That's one problem because an average patient stay may be 3 days. So only one third of their patients are turning over. But also, the hospitals do not have the infrastructure to actually support the more modern technological equipment. So that's a big problem here.
And they usually start in houses. In a
Yes.
house,
Well, no,
5 beds, 10 beds. Then they buy the house next door,
exactly.
another 10 beds.
Latin America, is quite different because we have very, very dense urban areas, but then we have vast rural areas that are still challenged at trying to give healthcare. Another problem that's contributing to the trends are the pandemic, which has negatively affected hospital budgets and throughputs. So hospitals are just realizing now that they thought they may have had adequate equipment to attend to surges to hospital care, but they're realizing they don't now. And then another reason, like I said before, because the majority of hospitals in Latin America are in rural areas, well, there's no salespeople visiting these hospitals on a regular basis to sell them proper medical equipment. Um, that 60% of the region is managed by public health care, and 60%, which equates about 80% of the market. Even for public healthcare system, hospital expenditures were redirected, and they were put to other resources to attend to the crisis. Even public healthcare is going to have to find very creative ways to start purchasing medical equipment over the next few years. And all of these challenges that are in Latin America are actually creating opportunities for other parts of the world because they're deinstalling equipment, or there's manufacturers in different parts of the world that are manufacturing less expensive equipment that takes less technology to operate but can provide better patient care.
Sure.
Does that make
Mm.
sense to you?
Yeah, yeah, makes
That
sense.
so these problems can be very, very easily solved if we just create these synergies or a way to connect this equipment that's on the market, whether it's new or used. And the used medical equipment market is a $32 billion business. And a
Around the
lot of
world.
times,
Yeah.
this medical equipment does not reach the end user because there's just not a way to get it there. There's not a way to connect buyers and sellers together, and there's not ways to help facilitate the logistics or help facilitate the regulatory concerns that are needed to get that medical equipment landed and installed.
But there are
And,
laws in
and
some countries that prevent used medical equipment to be imported,
There
right?
actually in the industry, new medical equipment is heavily regulated, but used medical equipment, they allow more opportunities to move it around. So for Mexico, for instance, you don't need COFEPRIS, which is similar to the FDA in the US, to bring used medical equipment in.
Oh, really?
But but you also want to make sure that quality equipment is being delivered and that you can support it with future parts.
Okay. Hmm.
So that's how we're filling some of the gaps. We can facilitate the connections to get the right equipment to the right places, but also support it with a parting system so that they can maintain the system long term.
Well, I have a comment about that, Tom. In Colombia, that is probably the country that I know the most for obvious reasons
Of
because I
course.
was born and raised in Colombia. Uh, the law prevents older medical equipment to enter the country, and the cutoff is 2 years. I mean, if it is
Okay.
older than 2 years, you are not going to be able to bring into the country. So I guess the big manufacturers, GE, the big ones, probably lobby the government or something. I don't know what happened.
Well, Julio, what happens is that even for manufacturers too, because we work with manufacturers as well, manufacturers at some point start producing new technology, and that new technology may not be able to fit into the existing equipment they're having. A lot of that equipment will go abandoned or will be end up for parts. There's still an opportunity. It's like you say in Colombia, something 2 or 3 years old, there is still equipment on the market 2 or 3 years old. And let's expand that because we also work with products. So there's companies that may have pallets of products like gloves or gowns that are very useful for staff in the treatment of patients that may be closer to expiration date but can be used by other countries. And anytime that medical products and equipment goes to waste, that means patients aren't being treated. Somewhere in this world, the patient's not getting something they can get to help them be healthier.
Yes, yes, Tom, you're bringing up an interesting point, and that's actually one of the top reasons why I started this podcast because I realized that there is a huge gap, innovation gap, as I call it, between Latin America and the developed world. Call it the US, Europe, Japan, um, where it will probably take about 10, 15 years before a product reaches Latin America after it is approved by the FDA, for example, or has a CE mark approval. So it's really sad that patients do not have access to innovative medical technologies, whereas in other countries, people have had it for 10, 15 years. So the
Exactly.
podcast is a way to show, and well, before I go there, I mean, one of the reasons why this gap exists, I think, is because companies are not really aware about the opportunities that Latin America offer. This
Correct.
vast region of over 660 million people, over 30 something countries, uh, big countries like Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, Chile, as you correctly named, with great infrastructure. They're hungry for medical innovation. And
Correct.
reimbursement is pretty much guaranteed because in a lot of these countries, healthcare is a constitutional right, and government pays for anything pretty much. So anyway, my point is that the podcast is kind of a grain of salt, trying to help close the gap, and so that medical innovation reaches the region faster.
Exactly. And you mentioned the word technology. So technology has two sides to it. So it has an infrastructure and it has an equipment side to it. But if we can't deliver the technology, we can't deliver specialty services. And quite honest, within from a global standpoint, that should be like high on their radar to be addressed because it looks like that we can easily address it. It's just getting the right resources to the right places and understanding the market a little bit differently. We're not going to change rural hospitals, and the rural people don't have the opportunity to go to urban areas to get treatment. And quite honestly, sometimes they don't have the proper insurance to get into the level of hospital they need to get into.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So, this, even though we're talking about medical equipment and products and the problem that we have about getting them into the places they need, but we're really truly talking about is patient care. That's the bottom line here. The physicians can't provide patient care if they don't have the right equipment and products. And we all witnessed that during the pandemic. So we should have learned by now. Now we should learn.
Yes. Yeah. All right, Tom. Let's talk about what you are doing today at MedGlobal Group. I mean, what is your marketplace about? How does it work? What challenges you're facing right now?
So we began in 2015, and we started as a Latin focused only multi-sided platform serving the medical industry. So we provide a marketplace or a foundation where sellers can list their products, services, and equipment, and buyers can search and find what within their budget or their needs or their technological needs. And we have over right now we have over 20 no we have over 12,000 products listed. But recently, within the past year, we just rebranded to an international company in multiple languages, multiple currencies. Because what we've learned over that time is that our clients were no longer being Latin American clients. Our clients were becoming American, US clients, or European clients, or Asian clients that wanted to move into the Latin market. So we redeveloped our entire platform to meet that kind of demand so that we can not just focus on Latin America, but we can actually connect somebody in the United States, manage the language barriers, and manage the currency barriers, and still connect these two end users together. So a buyer and seller together that can hopefully find the right equipment in the right place, and we also can facilitate the logistics for them as well. And in addition to that, we're now publishing a fully interactive digital magazine for the health industry, as you know. And what we're trying, and all of that integrates with our platform. One thing I didn't mention that since we decided to rebrand, we also decided to be a development company.
Huh. Interesting.
So
Okay.
so we are a tech company actually now, and we develop a lot of things, and we're developing new things for the medical industry based upon their needs, and that has been an amazing journey for us over the last couple of months since we've launched the new platform. We have had such amazing response. Um, Distributors from around the world and manufacturers from around the world are all contacting us now because they see that we're their connection between them and Latin America. But we just don't connect the user. We make sure we find out what all their needs are. So if they need somebody to help them with regulatory concerns, we can connect them with that as well. So it's almost like a spoken hub type of a process where we just don't deal with just selling somebody. We want to make sure that we can deliver quality equipment to practical places that can give better patient care. And that's our complete goal. And another thing that we even do, that if there's donations that of medical products or equipment, we'll help facilitate that, just to make sure, because anytime medical products or services go to waste, patients aren't being served. And that's very important to us.
And what countries in Latin America are the most popular for your searches or for your client searches
Sure.
for the?
So right now, Mexico, of course, is our headquarters, and it's very active for us. Colombia comes in at number two. You'll be happy to hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
Chile comes
Yeah.
in at number three.
Well,
Ecuador
Colombia.
is in number four. Brazil is up there at number five. Argentina is six. So we literally, and then Central America is actually growing a lot. Despite the challenges that are happening, Central America is actually coming up
Huh.
very much.
Interesting. Awesome. So let's talk about challenges. What would you say are the top three challenges that you're facing in Mexico or elsewhere in Latin America with your business?
You know, the top challenges I think here is obviously because the GDP has dropped significantly in Mexico. And remember that the majority of healthcare right now in Mexico is public healthcare system that's funded by taxation dollars, and those taxation dollars aren't there anymore. So the challenges coming up, I believe that the public health care system, which typically only focused on new equipment, is going to have to be a little more creative now and find more economical ways to fill those voids so that they can meet the needs. Like in America, like in Colombia, the average age of or the mortality rate is keeps dropping. So the average age of lifespan keeps rising, which means there's a greater need for healthcare, and that's the same thing in Latin America that is in any place in the world. So somehow, some way, we have to find a way to get the equipment, the products, the services, the trust to build here. We have to get more manufacturers to come here and start producing. There are some manufacturers in Latin America. Um, I think one of those challenges is in the belief of our human resources, belief in our skill set, and that's so completely wrong, because we're a tech company and we're here in Latin America and we're doing very well. And I feel that we have some of the best developers, designers, operators in the system, in the system. And I just feel that the rest of the world may not understand that quite yet. And here I am. I'm a U.S. citizen who's here and established here and see the opportunities, and just to see that, over time, that this area, well, we all know that Latin America is probably the fastest emerging
It
region of
is.
the world now.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also the most urbanized area of the world.
Yes. Yes,
So that helps for,
we can
for
eliminate some of these misnomers about
yeah.
Latin America and get people to understand that we're not just beaches, and we're very high tech. This is we are a growing and emerging, like I said before, out of the top 10 emerging healthcare regions: Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Argentina. That has to speak for
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, yeah. Wow,
And just
interesting.
look at how those countries are positioned. We're not talking about a quad of countries. They're spread across from top to bottom of Latin America.
Yeah.
And Chile is considered to be first world healthcare.
Yeah.
So, things are changing here quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't want to inundate with statistics over and over again, but I have a
Yeah, it's
lot.
boring.
But those are what I see. But what we are, the challenges, like you said, the challenges that we're really facing right now is specialty healthcare, radiotherapy, special treatments for cancer, um, special treatments for robotics.
Okay.
But then again, all of that goes back to infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can't deliver that technology until we can improve the infrastructure.
Well said. Excellent, Tom. Well, we're close to the end of the show, Tom. And before we sign off, I mean, any final words of wisdom? In other words, what would you say to the CEO of a medical equipment or medical technology company in the US is just starting to look at Latin America as a place to do business? How would you summarize your main idea, your big idea?
Well, focus on, instead of, take your time and focus on studying healthcare in Latin America. Start learning, learn how the hospitals are growing and increasing. I mean, I can see construction happening even in Querétaro here in Mexico, in central Mexico. They're just completing two private hospitals, and we're no longer talking 15, 20 beds. We're talking 150, 200 bed hospitals, private hospitals. Of course, that's coming because of the maquiladoras, or more factories and manufacturing coming here equals more private health insurance. But we need to fill this gap with specialty healthcare treatment. This is probably the most important thing that we can do to help bring Latin America up to be equivalent to the rest of North America. And everyone recognizes that we play a significant part in our trade, in our trade agreements between North America and Latin America. But we can do a much stronger part. Other countries are doing it here. China and Asia are setting up manufacturing here. I predict in the next 10 to 12 years, we're going to see Latin America be a predominant player in the healthcare industry, not only with delivering, healthcare treatment, but manufacturing products and services, um, building greater technology with the resources and the skills that we have here now. And I just see so much coming for this amazing region that we're in, that constantly doesn't get the credit that it should get.
Agree.
And I'm sure you might agree with me on
No,
that.
totally, totally. I mean, that's a given. And I love your passion. I love your enthusiasm. I love how you have become a Latin American already. And I mean, you show it.
Well, you know what? I don't think healthcare is designated to a specific culture or a nationality. Healthcare
Yeah,
is for everyone.
for everyone. Yes,
Everyone should have an equal opportunity to get equal treatment around the world and not have to struggle to get that treatment.
exactly.
And that's the
Yes.
passion that I have. Really, that's my deep vision, is that we can make this so much easier to move equipment around. If something gets deinstalled in New York,
Yeah.
that we find a
Hmm.
home for immediately, whether it's in Africa or it's in
Yeah.
Asia or wherever it has to be, but it ends up where it can do a lot of people a lot of good.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. All right, Tom. Thank you so much for being in the
Thank you.
show today. I really, really enjoy your comments. Your passion about Latin America is really contagious.
Thank
So,
you very
especially
much.
coming from you, from a U.S. citizen living in Querétaro, Mexico.
Well,
Oh,
if you learn a little bit about Latin America, you're gonna see that many people miss many amazing things that are here,
yeah, yeah. Great to
and
hear that.
amazing people and extremely great universities that are just making things so much better. Pandemic slowed us down, but we're coming out of the pandemic and we're coming strong.
Yes, that's very true. I mean, a lot of the countries are growing at a very fast rate, faster than
Yeah,
before the pandemic, actually. So I don't know what's
we're
happening,
trying.
but yeah, exactly.
I'll do
Anyway, Tom,
everything.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I was going to say that I would do we will do everything I can to promote and help foster the growth here.
Excellent. I love that. All right, Tom, thank you so much. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye
Great
bye.
having you
Take
here.
care.